What is up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today we are going to expand the fat loss topic of last week's episode on Monday. So we talked about muscle gain and fat loss and really getting the maximum results, but it was bigger picture. It was a long-term periodization, right? Making sure you have those different phases, fat loss, muscle gain, etc. I wanted to expand on the fat loss side of things because this time of the year, a lot of people are trying to lose fat. And before we even jump in, I want to share something because I'll share this with you. YouTube is brutal when it comes to the comments. You know what I mean? I have yet to get a single kind of positive comment outside of one episode we did, which was dry January. So all the way back in January this year, a lot of people were very positive because a lot of people were trying to, quit alcohol for the month. And it was a really a successful episode, which was really cool to see. Exciting people, or excited people. Really looking to, hey, learn more about this stuff, make a better, health decision for the new year. But other than that episode, it's been brutal. You know what I mean? We don't get a lot of comments on YouTube, but when they're there, it's usually something negative, which I just read one, maybe 5 minutes before I hit recording now. And you know what? I actually want to dive into it a little bit. Now, I'm not one for starting discussions online. I don't think that's conducive to anyone's, you don't really learn, from discussions. I feel like it's not always very productive, but I want to take their statement and hopefully give you something to take away. Cause I want you to know that the reason we talk about weight loss and stuff is not that I think everyone should just be dieting all the time. No, there's a lot of people who struggle with their weight, who are overweight, who are maybe carrying a little extra body fat. And then, of course, we help people lose that. Makes them objectively healthier, right? It makes them maybe feel more confident. And during that whole process, we improve mindset, we build mental resilience, we manage stress, and we practice all the healthy behaviors that are really conducive to a very long, happy, healthy, strong life. The comment I got was something I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically, your channel promotes intentional weight loss and I will not support unhealthy, unsustainable approaches like that. Fair enough. Again, this is not something that I openly will start a discussion around. I don't think, you know what I mean? But if you think about it, yeah, of course it's intentional. You know what I mean? Weight loss, muscle gain, any of your goals, it's an intentional effort. You know what I mean? Improving your health happens with intention. You know what I mean? The information that we put out, the podcast and all that stuff is out of the passion of helping you achieve those things. And of course we need to be intentional. Let's be fucking honest here, right? It's a journey, it's work. Let's be honest. It does take work. It takes a lot of time. It takes patience and effort. And we're not going to get to that long-term, next level where you want to be. Mental health wise, strength wise, you want to build up muscle, lose fat, whatever it is. We're not going to get to that point without intention, So absolutely, we are intentional with our fat loss and, weight loss information and all of that good stuff. And that being said, I want to take that and really drive the point home here today with all the basics that we're going to talk about, because I'm going to be sharing 10 fat loss basics with you to make it through a calorie deficit, doing it successfully, and not doing it in the most restrictive way possible. Because here's the thing, guys, I still see it all the time. I'm also on social media and YouTube, and the things you see, it's the same shit as what I used to struggle with 10 years ago, or 12 years ago actually, where the information is still pretty terrible online. There's not a lot of great stuff out there. And you still see the restrictive diets get more, attention really, because they put out these big claims, which is clickbaity, which is something that draws more attention. You know what I mean? A lot of that stuff is still around, and I don't believe in that stuff. And I think we need to approach fat loss in a way more intentional yet sustainable way. And like I said last time, let me repeat one statement. Fat loss phases, and the same thing goes for performance or muscle gain phases, are meant to be seasonal. You should not be trying to be in a deficit all the time. And that's the issue with most information online. You'll always hear calorie deficit, calorie deficit, calorie deficit. And while it is true that you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose body fat, with all that information that you constantly just hear, you might just think like, hey, that is what I should be doing, right? But you're not supposed to always be in a calorie deficit. And I would even argue that the fact that people try to be in a calorie deficit year round is exactly why their metabolism is crap. They're not building muscle. They don't look like they work out. And not just that, they don't manage to lose fat and or keep it off because of all these extreme approaches. So I'm going to share with you 10 basics that we apply with every single one of our clients who successfully loses body fat, keeps it off long term. Maybe take notes here, maybe even go through these steps and think, okay, which one really needs more work for me? And then, of course, if you do need more help, please feel free to reach out. We do have our free Facebook group, which I'll drop in the show notes as well. You can always reach out if you want to learn more about coaching. I'll drop that there too. So you're going to see the description. It's going to be the link to the free Facebook group as well as our coaching link. Happy to offer you a free call just to talk about your goals. Like, we don't just take anyone on, you know what I mean? Like, I actually want to get to know you first. I want to know what you've been through, your goals, and all those kind of things, which is why we do offer that free call. So feel free to request one. There's a form if you go to that link, fill it out, no strings attached. It's non-binding. Let's just have a chat first, and then we'll take it from there. Now let's move into the episode because I do want to give general advice here, right? Intentional advice to help you lose fat sustainably. Because, like I said, this time of the year is actually a really good timing when it comes to your periodization, right? Assuming you've done some pre-work to lose fat now and then move into maintenance during the holiday season, which is, around the corner. So let's get into the 10 basics to help you stick with your calorie deficit, successfully lose body fat, and keep it off. Starting with number 1, very, very key. Maintenance and building routines comes first. You always want to start knowing your actual maintenance calories. Now, you can use calculations for that. You can, of course, look at your fitness tracker. But here's the thing, guys. Fitness trackers are unreliable because they are inaccurate 100% of the time. There's research on this, right? So even the more recent, the newer devices still seem to be inaccurate. And some of them still, or at least, some of the very popular ones, can still be inaccurate up to like 30-50%. And they always overestimate the amount of calories you burn. So we're not going to know that number. And why do I mention this? It's very important to know that as you are trying to figure out your maintenance. You want to start at maintenance, but if you don't know like how many calories you burn, how do you do that, right? So what you want to do is you use a calculation, which, by the way, we do have on our website too. You try to calculate roughly where your maintenance is going to be. Then you start tracking your food. You start tracking your weight. You see what the trends are doing. You try to work your way either up or down towards that number and see what your weight does. If your weight's dropping, you're in a deficit. If your weight stays just about the same, close to the number, it's probably about right. And hey, like if you're gaining weight, okay, maybe either temporarily or just in general, your maintenance is lower. These calculations are just based off of averages. So I want you to know that actually finding that maintenance is going to require a bit of time. Now, the cool thing is, and here's the thing that what we do, we take our time first with our clients to first of all even build the habit of tracking food, get those metrics that we need. And during that initial month or so together, we make sure that we build routines first. So not only do you get to eat more and consistently, get your healthy food in, and it's all based around whole foods. And guys, the whole goal here is to eat enough, right? While you do that, we get to figure out that maintenance calorie range, which we will need to move into fat loss. Basic number 2 is tracking your macros. It is, objectively speaking, the best way to control your food intake. Yes, you can track calories. However, I like macros because you want to be aware of, especially your protein, but also fats and carbs. Here's how we do it, because that protein is going to help you build muscle, is going to help you maintain muscle during the fat loss phase, is going to keep you full, super important. It's also essential. And we see most people actually not getting enough. So first of all, we want to cover that protein. Then if we look at carbs and fats, based on the research, it actually doesn't seem to matter whether you get the rest of your calories from fats or carbs for fat loss specifically. However, the fats are going to be the highest in calories, 9 calories per gram. That's double compared to carbs. Carbohydrate will allow you to train better, recover better, build and maintain muscle better, which is why we always try to go with the following approach. We cover your protein intake, and you track your macros, right? You work your way up to, let's say, just about 1.8 up to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. And that is based off of either your lean weight, lean body mass, or your goal weight. Easiest thing to do is just pick goal weight and then work your way up. Then we go to fats first because, again, carbs, right? We want to actually get away with as much as possible to support training so that we can also puzzle those carbs around your training. But we look at your fats and we look at, okay, what's the minimum requirement for that? And that would be around maybe like 0.7 grams per kilo of body weight. So we put that there. Again, we're tracking macros. We're looking at all three: carbs, fats, and protein, right? Because once protein is covered and we keep that fat at the minimum, now we have as much room as possible to get those carbs in. And that is going to be super key because it's going to help you perform better. And it's not just about weight loss. It's not even just about fat loss. It's about maintaining your muscle too. Everyone wants to look toned, defined, whatever it is. That's the goal here. Maintaining muscle. Protein is going to be key there, but also your workouts. And a couple more things, but we'll get to that in a sec. So track your macros. It's really it's the difference of it's the difference between driving with your dashboard, your GPS, like you know exactly where you're going, right? You have the metrics. It's the difference between that and like driving backwards, blindfolded, like sitting on a donkey. You know what I mean? Like you don't have any clue like what's coming in, like, people love to bring up the intuitive eating thing. Yes, that's cool, but that's not a fat loss approach. That's supposed to be maintenance. You know what I mean? And I would even say that being able to intuitively follow your hunger cues requires tracking first. First of all, to get you to a healthy weight, but then also that maintenance, making sure that you actually relearn portion control. Because let's be honest, right? We are here for a reason. If we want to lose fat, there's probably something with our hunger satiety cues or our eating habits that needs to be improved. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing, Like so many people struggle with this. I used to, but that's why we use the data. And then down the road, we step away from it. And then we get to earn that more intuitive approach at maintenance. But going back to point one, we will never know calories burned, which is another reason why I need you to track your macros. We're going to roughly find that maintenance range. But now we need to also look at, hey, what's the food coming in? As we do that, we figure out that maintenance. We have a grip on your food intake. Now, moving into point 3, right? Basic number 3, tracking your metrics. Now we can look at what your body is doing. How is it responding to those macros? Because again, if we can see what weight's doing, we will know, are you in a deficit? Are you at maintenance? Or are you maybe even in surplus? We will know based off of the fact that you're gaining, maintaining, or losing weight. And that is why we use, tracking macros for the food that's coming in. And then we track your metrics to look at how's the body responding to all of this. Now, that's going to include weight measurements and photos. First of all, weight. It's going to fluctuate every single day for most people. And that's okay. That's normal. 1 to 2% is completely normal. You might see multiple kilos or pounds even from one day to the next. And no, it will not be body fat. It's mostly going to be changes in food mass, water weight as well. There's going to be differences sometimes in glycogen stores, which is really stored carbohydrate in your muscles, which, by the way, per gram of carbs that are stored in your muscles, you pull in just about 3 grams of water. And that's, by the way, that's not bloat. That's good weight to have. Like, it's in your muscle cell. So you actually want that, which, by the way, if you start taking creatine, you'll see that too, right? Same kind of thing there. But weight is still going to be the most important metric because we need to start to control how fast you are losing weight during a fat loss phase. When we do so, and we aim for just about half a percent up to 1% per week of weight loss, and by the way, I want you to know it's not always going to be like that, right? There will be weeks where it's going to be way slower. But if we aim for that, we can control how fast we're losing weight, which means we can control how much of that is going to be fat and muscle. We're likely going to lose a bit of muscle down the road, but that's going to be very, 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 very little compared to the amount of body fat you lose, which again is the main goal, right? If you stick to those ranges. So that's why we do weight. It allows us to just keep things in check, you know what I mean? Now it's not the best metric for everything, but like for controlling how fast you're losing weight, it's huge. Now we do double check with measurements because there will be weeks where you do not lose 0.5% or 1%. You might still be losing body fat because you can lose body fat without losing weight. You can even gain weight without gaining body fat, you know? Again, differences in water weight, etc., which by the way, for females especially, based on menstrual cycle, we're going to see more water retention, which will even impact, a bit of bloating and stuff too. Like it'll even impact weight measurements, etc., even photos. So keep that in mind as well. We have a lot of female clients. I'm always like, hey, make sure to compare like week 4 of your cycle to week 4 and not look at like 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know what I mean? Like make sure to compare cycle to cycle because long term, like we can see, of course, measurement wise photos, how we are really improving because hormones are going to be fluctuating. Now, that being said, with the measurements, you can still see, like, let's call it like, because people will call this like a plateau, right? But let's call it like a few weeks where you maybe don't see that scale drop. Do not freak out. Look at your measurements. 9 out of 10 times, those centimeters or inches are still going down. You know what I mean? I've seen this over and over again. And then sometimes I get people like almost worried, like, I'm not losing weight. And then I can show them, hey, look at the measurements. We're good. Now we also have a triple check, and that's going to be your photos. As a triple check, like I said, but even just like for the fact that you're going to look in the mirror every single day pretty much, and not notice those little changes. So we're going to use the photos to really have almost like a monthly, point where, hey, look where we're currently at. Okay, now we really start to see the changes. I've even seen clients be a little bit uncomfortable with this in the beginning, which I understand. But I always say, like, hey, look, first of all, I see this every single day, every single week, many, sets of photos. And it's just important to objectively see where we are at. And not just that, especially if you work with a coach, take the photos because they need to see how much muscle mass you have, for example. And they have an objective, or me in this scenario, have an objective set of eyes. You're going to be too critical of yourself anyway. But like, I can then go in and say, hey, look at this, right? Okay, cool. So weight, a bit more stable. Okay, measurements, we can see that we're progressing, but check your photos. Hey, we actually lost quite a bit of body fat around the upper back area, maybe arms, whatever it is, maybe even areas where we don't measure. You're going to see it in your face, neck even, you know what I mean? So it's super key to have your weight, your measurements, as well as photos. Moving into basic number 4, don't just slash your calories in half. I mean, crash diets. I mean, guys, it's 2024. We know those crazy crash diets. They're not going to be sustainable for you. They're not going to last, They might get short-term results, or they might get huge short-term results, but it's not going to be something you can really stick with. You're going to be starving yourself. You're going to hate life. Energy is going to tank. We might lose more muscle, right? Take it easy. Now, there is something to be said for more aggressive styles of cutting, but it doesn't mean that we're just going to slash calories. So take it easy. Like, again, I'm going to assume here that you've been working on your routines like I recommended. You've been at maintenance and you kind of know where that is. Okay, now we can start our fat loss phase with just about a 15 to 25% deficit. Lower is not better. Let's say 20%, right? Let's stay there. For the first 2 to 4 weeks or even longer, you stay exactly there. You don't make any changes. You keep things dialed, right? Your nutrition, repeat your foods, your meals. This is going to be a period, and hey, it maybe sounds a bit boring, but this is going to be a period where you will benefit off of repeating as many foods and meals as possible so that it becomes a very clear plan for you to follow. Remember to what I said in the beginning, fat loss phases are not meant to last forever, and that's going to be another point, but it's a seasonal approach. Remember that we are being intentional here, right? Like I said in the beginning, we are being intentional here. So be intentional. Try to be, I don't like to use the word strict, but like, let's try to be more regimented during this fat loss season so that you can get the maximum amount of results out of your phase. Go back to maintenance basically sooner because we're going to be losing fat more effectively, right? And then be more flexible. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. But okay, so you start with a 20-ish% deficit of your maintenance calories. You keep proteins the same. You might even bring it up a little bit because it's going to help you, stay full. Keep fats low, like I said, and then the rest is going to be that cut in carbohydrate, still trying to get in as much as possible. Now, After those initial 2 to 4 weeks, and I'm going to say 4 for most people, like do not make any changes, do not make any assumptions, stay the course. Especially the first 2-3 weeks, there's a good chance you're not going to lose body weight right away, but you might be losing body fat. The reason being, when you go into a deficit, it is a form of stress to the body, and cortisol will go up, a stress hormone. Cortisol leads to more water retention, which leads to, again, number on the scale not budging, but you might be losing body fat. And what we see usually is when people just stay consistent, after a couple of weeks, you kind of let go of that water weight, and then you'll really start to see the drop. And this is kind of like an unscientific term, but it's called the whoosh effect, and I've seen it over and over again. Now, that being said, future adjustments. So let's say you are going to, adjust your macros. I want you to cover a few steps first before actually doing so. First of all, be 200% sure that you are actually weighing and tracking everything that you eat. Anything that has calories, anything you drink needs to be tracked. Do it accurately, right? Make it count, be intentional. I'm going to just keep repeating that one. Number 2, the weights, measurements, and photos. Is it just the weight that's not moving? Or do you also see no changes in measurements and photos whatsoever? If that's the case, also consider if it's objectively time to move forward. And this is where coaching really comes in, honestly. A lot of times we get into our own heads and we start to think, okay, like it's not working. Gotta go lower. Next week, 100 calories. Slow down. If you need help, get a coach. It could be our team, could be anyone else, but get the accountability if you're struggling. There's no shame in that, asking for help, right? But really try to think, hey, is it actually time to cut calories, or do I need to be more consistent? Is there something that I can do better? And if yes, do that first. And then maybe, like I said, after maybe 2 to 4 weeks or so, you do want to adjust. And that's going to be just about a 5 to 7% reduction of your calories. So again, we're not slashing it again. We only started with 15 to 25. That's the only big adjustment here. Afterwards, it's small steps. 5 to 7% of your calories, and for most people that is going to be roughly 100 calorie difference. So we go lower. That could be, I don't know, just about like, let's say, 10 fats or 25 carbs, really depending on what you do. A lot of times it is going to be carbs because fats are already low in our case. And then again, you do the same thing, 2 to 4 weeks at least, and you stay super consistent. Point number 5, basic number 5, is really a few, but generally speaking, this is going to be all about managing hunger. We're going to talk about protein, fiber, and filling foods. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient. It's hard to break down for the body, which means it's going to keep you full longer. It's going to help you maintain that muscle that we talked about. Super, super key. Fiber, also very important, not just for health and longevity or digestion. It's also very filling, right? So anytime I see people struggle with hunger and cravings, I always look at fiber and protein. You still want to get a good amount of fiber in, just about, let's say, 15 grams per 1,000 calories that you consume. But higher amounts, I've seen that work very well for people. I recently did a training in our community where I showed people how you can even hit like 50 grams, which is over exaggerating, but still, you can hit like 50 grams of fiber even at like 1,400 calories. It's possible. It's a little bit more puzzling, but you can make it work, you know what I mean? If you want to go that high. But I would say, 30 plus, maybe for most people, 30, 35, that would be a really nice range to aim for. You don't have to go to 50. It was just, I wanted to make a point, But like, you can hit those numbers and you will feel better for it. It's going to keep you more full too. And just filling foods in general. We should probably just do like a, filling foods kind of episode. But things like boiled potatoes are actually super, super filling. So maybe you want to swap the white rice or bread or pasta for that during this season. And then maybe you want to swap it again as you go up in calories. I'm thinking low calorie foods, like a lot of veggies, a lot of fruits. Those are going to be key. They're going to get you a lot of fiber, micronutrients, water, and managing hunger is also all about the stretch receptors in your stomach. That is the main driver of hunger and satiety. So we could stick with our macros and calories without really filling the stomach and still be super hungry. Yet if we fill it up, again, and those stretch receptors, they'll notice when you're actually full, you know what I mean? Like, that is going to signal, hey, we are actually full, you see? So there's a big difference there. Think about when calories go down, volume needs to go up. Calories go down, volume needs to go up. Next, basic number 6, it's really 2, but it's sleep and stress management. We got to make sure we sleep enough. We have to. It's easier said than done. We'll do a podcast on this too in the future, but or we'll bring it back. But sleep, super, super key. Stress management, super, super key. We're going to be managing hunger better. We're going to have fewer cravings. We're going to feel more full. It's all playing into your hunger and satiety hormones. We could have a crappy night of sleep, and those hormones might just be all out of whack. It's going to help you maintain more muscle. It's going to help you lose more body fat. There's even a study where they compared 2 groups, where one group was in bed for 8.5 hours. The other group was in bed for 5.5 hours. They were both put in an equal calorie deficit, and they lost the same amount of weight. But the people who were in the 8.5 hour group maintained more muscle, lost more body fat. The people in the 5.5 hour group, they lost less body fat and lost more muscle, which, if you think about it, actually leads to a worse body composition. You see? Again, it's not just about losing weight, it's about losing fat, maintaining muscle. Hunger, satiety is better. And remember too, recently we talked about this a lot, but stress and fatigue also massively plays into self-control and willpower and decision-making and all that good stuff. So just by making sure you make a point of slowing down a bit more, getting your rest, everything else will be better. And you will make it much easier for yourself to stick to. Going back to being intentional, we're being intentional about managing our sleep and stress, you know what I mean? We do need to make a point of that. Now, next up, keep lifting your weights. You notice how I didn't even talk about cardio so far? And it actually will not be one of the points. More about that in a sec. But number 7, keep lifting weights. Generally speaking, maybe 3 to 5 times a week. A resistance training based program to maintain muscle. It's really just a signal to your body of, hey, we need to hold on to this muscle. We still need this stuff. Because, it's actually very energy expensive for your body to keep muscle and even build it in the first place. But make the goal, of course, together with your rest and your protein and your sleep and all that good stuff, to keep lifting weights, to tell your body that it needs to hold on to that muscle. Fun fact, if you are a beginner, you might just be building muscle even in a fat loss phase. And if that's the case, you're lucky. Any advanced lifter is going to be jealous of you. Moving into the next one. Instead of trying to do hours and hours of cardio, just focus on your daily steps. Did you know that when you do a lot of cardio, your body adapts and it becomes more efficient? So at the end of the day, eventually you're going to be burning fewer calories by doing the same amount of running, bike, cycling, whatever it is. No one tells you this, and this is also why the fitness tracker is unreliable. If you do the same hour of running, let's say, you might burn a lot of calories in the beginning, but if you do that same hour, over time, you will be burning fewer calories from that exercise, which is kind of crazy to think about, but your body is really smart. Now, that being said, why do I bring up the steps? Now, your daily step count is really the best measure for general movement, your non-exercise activity, and your body, when you are in a calorie deficit, will adapt. Your metabolism will slow down. It sounds very scary, but for the most part, that's that non-exercise activity. It's mostly general movement, which might even be blinking less, twitching less, hand gestures, just, you're less likely to get off the couch, whatever it is. Make a point of tracking your steps so that you, first of all, maintain 15% of your metabolism, right? That's non-exercise activity. You keep that in a good spot to support your fat loss goal. Around 10K is about the sweet spot, I would say. Technically, maintenance, 8,000 would be plenty already, or even 500. But let's say 8,000 maintenance. Now that we're in the fat loss phase, go for 10K. Go for 12 if you can. That way, we can keep as much food in as possible. So you see, again, we're not slashing calories. I want you to eat as much as possible for as long as possible while still losing fat and building muscle, or at least maintaining muscle. Like I said, building is only going to be for the beginners, really. So 10 to 12K steps. That's not to say you shouldn't do cardio. I'm not hating on cardio. I'm just saying that we shouldn't be doing cardio with the whole purpose of, I'm going to be burning fat. It's not how it works. And you're going to be better off looking at your steps, resistance training, and just making sure that, hey, we do some cardio for the health benefits that we do get. Very key. Heart health in particular. But don't overdo it. Of course, it's going to play into calories burned. It does. It's just a small difference. Moving into point number 9. So basic number 9, have a end date so that you can move out of that deficit. Do not live in a calorie deficit. Get the hell out. Like once you're good, once the weight's lost, get out. And because I know you're going to be either impatient and hey, I'm saying this with love, right? I've been there. You're going to either be impatient. You're going to think, I just want to keep going because I want to keep losing more weight. Maybe you're like, I haven't lost enough weight. All those little things, right? They're going to come up. I can guarantee you this at some point, at least, to avoid you making emotional decisions rather than being objective about stuff, right? Let's set an end date. Let's say, I don't know, a 12-week cut. At the end of that, you move out of your deficit and you go back up. We'll probably do like a reverse dieting episode pretty soon. But the way you would want to do that is, hey, let's say week 12, we wrap it up. Okay, cool. Let's go back to maintenance. Let's see where we ended your cut. Let's calculate your maintenance calories. I'm going to use easy numbers. Let's say we finish cutting at 1,500 calories and your maintenance is maybe 2,500. Okay, cool. Let's go to 2,000 first. We make a halfway jump. We hold for a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then we start to slowly add more calories back up. This allows you to transition out of a deficit. And yes, technically it's a bit more time in a deficit, but we've seen this work very well for people who want to lose fat and do so the best way possible without really, going just back to maintenance and sometimes getting too excited with those calories. With any change, a transition is usually going to be best than just one day to the next, And last but not least, very, very important. Basic number 10 for successfully achieving fat loss, successfully making it through a calorie deficit is sticking with the basics. To be honest with you, fat loss is really boring. It's a rinse and repeat process. You dial things in. In the beginning, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of changing habits and figuring out your macros, whatever it is. But after that initial phase of figuring shit out and having your routines in place, you literally just need to do the exact same stuff every single day for a few months in a row. And it's because it's that boring that most people have a hard time sticking with it. And that's the reality of any success in life, really, if you think about it. Do the thing that works, do it every single day, do it well, with intention, and you will get to that point. But it's actually very boring. Now, I do want you to keep celebrating your wins. I do want you to set other maybe goals, like, hey, let's play with that step goal. Those kind of things. Have other little milestones that we can check off, basically, because throughout that process, you're still going to grow a lot and you're still going to achieve a lot of big and small wins on a personal level, mental health, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, the actions that are required for you to be successful, the basics that we talked about today, need to be done on a day-to-day basis, or at least for the most part. I would say, like, if you're like 80% consistent, at least, you're going to be fine. 100% is going to be very unsustainable for most people, but at least make it the goal to show up every single day, because that is what it takes, to get there even. You're going to have great weeks, you're going to have bad weeks, but no matter what, the basics still go. Whether you feel great or don't, feel like crap, the basics will get you there, which is in a way almost maybe confronting, because it is that simple. After the learning phase, of course, it's really that simple. It's also very empowering, because then hey, once I have a routine in place, like, I can let you just go, and I will just keep going for a couple months with intention, so that we can get a really solid fat loss phase on. And then, of course, because it is a seasonal thing, you should not be staying in a deficit. We get you back to maintenance, and we focus on nourishing, fueling the body sustainably, just keeping that weight off, having a little bit more flexibility with our calories, practicing, the flexible foods too. Just about 20% can be, moved to your, your fun stuff, basically. Just having great workouts in, enjoying maybe some flexible meals. And I'm saying flexible, it doesn't even have to be like junk food, just stuff that we really enjoy that might even be a little bit more higher calorie. Great workouts, just really just loving the process and just enjoying the results we've created. So I hope that helps. I hope these 10 basics help you get through a fat loss phase successfully. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please do me a massive favor. And I bring this up a lot, but would you mind going to Apple or Spotify and leave us a quick review? quick 5-star. Because here's the thing, it actually does a lot for the podcast. It will show up for more people when you do that. So if you found this helpful, please pay it forward. Either drop us a quick review or even just share this in your stories, right? It would be much appreciated. And I will be back with you with another bonus episode on Thursday. And of course, if you have any questions, my DMs are always open. I'll talk to you soon.